Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Great to see all of you. Beautiful summer evening. And welcome to Temple Avat Shalom for all of you here in the sanctuary and for those of you at home. I'm Rabbi Matt Berger. I'm joined on the bima with our soloist Allison Rosoff and down at the piano Joy Katzen-Guthrie. Pleasure to have both of them here. Happy 4th of July weekend to each and every one of you. Have a safe 4th of July. And just to note, I've been here a year. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'ehyanu v'kiyamanu v'higyanu lazman hazeh. I guess that's better than tomatoes, so I'll take that. But July is usually when new clergy will come into town. And I remember just about a year ago, I rolled into town with my family with a fully packed CRV, packed to the absolute gills. So we are going to open up our Shabbat prayer, our Shabbat worship. You'll find the words to Yidid Nefesh, Heart's Delight, Source of Mercy, right behind me on the screens, in the bottom right-hand corner if you're watching at home, or on page 10 in the prayer books. Please join us. Yidid Nefesh, Av HaRachaman, Av HaRachaman, Mishok Avdecha, El Retzonecha, El Retzonecha. Yidid Nefesh, Av HaRachaman, Av HaRachaman, Mishok Avdecha, El Retzonecha, El Retzonecha. Yarutz Avdecha, Kemo Aya, Yishachaveh, El Muladarecha. Yidid Nefesh, Av HaRachaman, Av HaRachaman, Mishok Avdecha, El Retzonecha, El Retzonecha. Beautiful piyut, or example of medieval poetry, and a wonderful arrangement by Craig Taubman. We're going to usher in the Shabbat candles by singing Light These Lights.
Oh, hear my prayer, I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy and peace. Oh, hear my prayer to you. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen.
Blessing for the candles found on page 2 in your prayer books. bless you, God, for commanding us to kindle the lights of Shabbat. And on the theme of light and the beauty of Shabbat, an excerpt from a poem by the Israeli poetess Zelda. Softly, Shabbat has plucked the sinking sun. Slowly, Shabbat descends, the rose of heaven in her hand. How can the Sabbath plant a huge and shining flower in a blind and narrow heart? How can Shabbat plant the bud of angels in a racing heart? Light the candles, drink the wine. Slowly Shabbat descends in an inner hand of flower, an inner hand the sinking sun. We're going to bring back one of our Simon and Garfunkel arrangements. This will be for Lecha Dodi, our Kabbalistic poem. Come, my beloved, and greet Shabbat. When we get to the final verse, the pages in the prayer book are 20 and 21. When we get to that final verse and ask the Shabbat bride to come in peace, Bo'i v'shalom, I'll invite you to rise and face one of the doorways as we greet her upon her entrance. So this is to Scarborough Fair. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat lekabla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat lekabla. Adonai echad, u'shemo echad.
L'shem u'tiferet v'litilah.
Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha, ki mekor ha'beraka. Merosh mikedem nesuka, sof mahaseh b'mashvatila. Shalom atere mala, gam besimcha uvsola, toch emunei am segula, bo'i kala, bo'i kala. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat lekabla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat lekabla. Be seated. We'll continue now with words of praise, the Chatzi Kaddish, page 26.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
במד יברך ירתי וימליך מלכותי. בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל. בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר וירומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילם עם כל ברכתה ושירתה דושבחתה ונחמתה דמירם בעלמא ואמרו amen.
Let's rise now for Shema and its blessings and the call to prayer on page 28.
Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. La 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la.
Let's read together on 31 a prayer for creation, Ma'ariv Aravim. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. And a translation for Ahavat Olam, God's love for the world, on 33. Feel free to join me. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael. Let's open up our eyes as we prepare to say God is one.
Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes.
Open up our eyes.
Teach us how to live.
Teach us how to live.
Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. And we will know that you are one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kivod Malachuto Le'olam Va'ed. 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 Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Feel free to be seated, and we can chant together the words of the V'ahavta, loving Adonai with all our heart, with all our mind, and with all our strength. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech u'shokbecha uvkumecha ukshartam lehot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot beinenecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim Liot lachem Elohim, Ani Adonai Elohim. Let's read together on 39 words of freedom. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we are taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go is eternally Egypt,
there is a better place, a promised land. But the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. But there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
Who is like you? No one, no one. Who is like you, oh God?
Who is like you? No one, no one. Who is like you, oh God? Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh norah tehilot osef eleh. Who is like you, O God? Malechutecha ra'uvanecha bokeyayem lifnei Moshe u'Miriam. Zeli, 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 Zeli. Anu v'yamru. Who is like you? No one, no one. Who is like you, O God? Who is like you? No one, no one. Who is like you, O God? Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. We'll continue with words of shelter and protection. Hashkivenu, found on 42. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, ve'hamirneinu shomereinu l'chayim, uvros aleinu sukat shlomecha, uvros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Let's join in a song for Shabbat. Vishamru, keeping and guarding the day of rest.
Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'asor et HaShabbat ledorotam birit olam. Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'asor et HaShabbat ledorotam birit olam. B'nei uvein b'nei Yisrael, b'nei uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. V'shameru v'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'asot et HaShabbat ledorotam birit olam. Ki sheshet yamim, ki sheshet yamim, asan Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz.
Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'asot et HaShabbat ledorotam birit olam.
Uvayom ha'shivi Shabbat v'yinufash.
Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'asot et HaShabbat ledorotam birit olam. We'll continue with our standing prayers, the words of the Tefillah, beginning on page 46. Let's rise as we praise God.
Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi ilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'chonei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imot, U'mevir Geula livnei v'neihem, Lema'an Shemo be'ava, Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Hakol. Atah Rav Loshia, Morid Hatal. Mechachel Chaim bechesed, Mechayei Hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim ve'rofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umechayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umidom elach, Melech memit u'mechaye, Umat תצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל.
אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעלוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. Feel free to be seated. Those prayers for the generations before us, for God giving us life, and for holiness that we experience in the world. And now the Emsaot, the intermediate blessings of the Tefillah, our prayers, Kiddushat Hayom, which is a prayer for Shabbat, on page 55. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. And on 56, let our eyes behold your loving return to Zion. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose presence returns to Zion. Baruch atah Adonai Hamachazir Shechinato L'Tzion. And for gratitude and words of thanks, Hoda'ah, on 59. Baruch atah Adonai Hatov Shimcha U'chana'eh Lichodot. And our prayer of peace, Shalom Rav, is found on 60. Grant abundant peace to Israel, your people forever, for you are the sovereign God of all peace. May it be pleasing to you to bless your people Israel in every season and moment with your peace. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael, Mashalom. Take these moments for our own thoughts and reflections, and Allison will lead us in Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki Tahu Melech Adon L'chol HaShalom V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael B'chol עת ובכל השעה בשלומך. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם.
Turning now to words of healing and strength and courage. Our hearts, of course, go to all those who are affected by the tragedy of the building collapse in Surfside, Florida. We hope and pray for those who are injured, which includes first responders, that they'll have a quick recovery. And to these names, we'll add the following individuals from our community and beyond for healing. As we think of Laura Barnett, Charlie Burke, Marcy Bunn, Lisa Cargile, Eddie Deerfield, Matthew Deinhardt, Shirley Drevich, Edie Eckber, Evelyn Edelman, Heather Felser, Harry Fleisch, Denise Freifeld, Leah Gottlieb, Nan James, Denise Letelier, Arthur Maller, Ray Mancari, Arnold Miller, William Miller, Stephanie Ross, Nicole Rubin, and Jeff Stark. If there are other names to add for healing at this time, feel free to recite their names out loud.
My father, George Stark. Misheberach avotenu mikor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mikor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Long ago, back in Russia, when people used horses as their primary means of transportation, 3 men pooled together some money. Together, they had about 2,700 rubles between them, which allowed them to buy 17 horses. One paid half of the money, another a third, and the third man paid a ninth. But when the time came to divide the horses, they didn't know how to do it. So they did what some people did back then. They went to the rabbi for advice. "Let me sleep on this overnight," the rabbi said. "Come back tomorrow morning and bring your horses with you." The following morning, at the appointed time, the 3 partners brought their horses to the rabbi. The rabbi then went into a stable and let out his own horse. Mounting it, he drew up alongside the 17 other horses. The rabbi said, "My good friends, there are now 18 horses here. You who paid 1/2, take 9 horses. You who paid a third, take 6 horses. And you who paid 1/9, take 2 horses. Therefore, together, you have the 17 horses evenly divided." After taking care of the matter, the rabbi led his own horse back to the stable and returned to his study of the Talmud. Now, I've never been one to get straight A's in math, but this is a pretty ingenious way to solve what seemed to be an intractable problem, given that you can't, and obviously shouldn't, divide horses, or divide at least a single horse. It's a folktale that resonates with me for a few reasons. One, I've always had a fascination with numbers. By the way, Judaism definitely does too. 2, we find ourselves reading the book of Numbers in the Torah, which the rabbis later called Bamidbar, in the wilderness, denoting the Israelites' sojourn through the desert. And 3, it might pique our interest to discover how our tradition counts people in terms of their worth and uniqueness as human beings. Ever since people began to count on their fingers, I remember once I even took finger math in 3rd grade, numbers have held special significance. Many cultures and many religions have endowed numbers with sacred meaning and purpose. As we know, certain numbers might be considered lucky and others unlucky. For instance, in many tall buildings in the U.S., there isn't a 13th floor to be found on the row of elevator buttons. Numbers, lists, summaries of all types play an important role in Jewish learning. Toward the end of the Passover Seder, many people sing, Echad mi yodea, who knows one? I know one. One is our God, one is our God, one is our God, in the heavens and the earth. Ooh, ah, ah. At least that's how I do it. In fact, the Seders are a really great teaching tool because it's based on numbers that are so easy to remember. 4 cups of wine, 4 types of kids or learners, 4 questions, 3 pieces of matzah, and 10 plagues. You dip each one. And the counting continues between the 2nd day of Passover and Shavuot, the Festival of Weeks. 7 weeks of 7 days, which is 49, and the 50th day being our celebration of the gift of Torah, Matan Torah on Shavuot. In his great book, the Jewish Book of Numbers, Ronald Isaac wisely points out the Hebrew Bible is replete with numbers that are sometimes meant to be taken at face value, but more likely to be noteworthy for their symbolic nuances. Just think of all the numbers we've heard just in this evening's Shabbat service. We pray to one God. There's an abbreviation of the 10 Commandments on many arcs throughout the country and world. There are 3 patriarchs, 4 matriarchs, 5 books of the Torah, 6 regular days of the week, and the 7th our day of rest. Perhaps the finest example of numerology in Judaism, though, is found in the book of Numbers, because it begins with a counting of the Israelites. And you should know it's very, very rare for the Bible to contain a census or counting of any sort. And historically, Jews have been very skittish about counting people. So how is a tradition so rife with numbers be hesitant about counting people? The answer is that we don't want to turn people into numbers. The prophet Hosea shares a similar message when he teaches the number of the people Israel will be like the sands of the sea, which can't be numbered or measured. And there's a teaching from the Talmud, like our old Russian rabbi was reading, that echoes the same idea. And it says God only imparts blessing to people or things which can't be counted. And in more traditional Jewish circles, people actually calculate or count whether or not there's a minyan or a prayer quorum of 10 people. But they're not going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as many of us would, but in fact, they'll do it in the negative. Not 1, not 2, not 3, and so on and so forth. And the reason for this is not to invoke or pique the interest of the ayin hara, or the evil eye. And while this may seem superstitious to some people, it does teach us a pretty good lesson, that a human being is more than the sum of their parts. Simply put, we can't be reduced to statistics, like our age or our social security number. We're much more nuanced and meaningful than that. We're reminded of this especially as the world watches the tragedy unfold in Surfside. Every day, or maybe multiple times a day, we go on our phones or newspapers and learn about the number of people affected, either casualties or those who are killed. And that's just a number, but we must remember that every single one of those precious souls has the spark of God in them. Individuals, all of whom mean a great deal to their family and the communities they live in. Of course, there are many positive uses for numbers and statistics. In sports, they're used all the time as metrics of success. I remember when I was a teenager, I used to keep track of the box scores in the newspaper. You know, those paper ones that you open up and you can feel that ruffle of the papers and kind of smell that ink. People still do that today, but I haven't done it in quite some time. And while any of the players' stats that you might read in the newspaper might be impressive on their own, they never really tell the full story. A pitcher's ERA or earned run average, or a batter's OBP or on-base percentage, for instance, doesn't tell us whether or not this individual is a leader in the clubhouse. A basketball player's points per game doesn't tell us whether he or she can block out well, set picks, or make a perfect pass. But in today's world, people are still judged by statistics or singular characteristics, but not always in a positive way. The most extreme answer is during the moral abyss and nadir of the Holocaust. Today, people are still judged by single characteristics such as the color of their skin, their gender identity, their ethnicity, their looks, and so on and so forth. We don't need to look very hard to find examples of this. And we know all too well the dangers of stereotypes and reducing people to mere numbers. Our sacred task is to remember that every single person, everyone we meet, everyone we hear about, is created B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God, and that every one of them has a unique and special story, along with many compelling characteristics that make them and all of us who we are. Our tradition has long insisted that we look beyond the superficial and the physical to see the totality of every person. About 2,000 years ago, a rabbi named Meir, it's one of my Hebrew names, he wisely taught, don't look at the jug, but what's inside. There might be a new jug filled with old wine, or an old jug filled with not a drop of wine at all, which is similar to the adage, beauty is only skin deep. Meaning outer beauty has no relationship to someone's worth, to someone's goodness, to someone's essence. If we only look on the outside, we'll never know what lies within. Not so long ago, we lived in an analog age. If you wanted to see someone, you had to go see them in person. Pictures were only printed on photo paper, and magazines could only be bought at newsstands or by mail order sent to your home. Now we live in the digital age. Most of our photos or videos are on our computers or smartphones. We email, text, use apps like FaceTime or Skype to make video calls to see each other. And we use search engines like Google and Firefox to find information rather than those old multi-volume encyclopedias like World Book or Encyclopedia Britannica. You might have had some of those at home. There are so many blessings to be gleaned from this technology, not least of which is the ability for all of you watching at home to watch services and celebrate Shabbat with all of us here in the sanctuary. Just imagine what the past year and a half would have been like without the ability to see each other on our phones or experience prayer or holidays together via live stream. These opportunities to gather both then and now are so important, and they'll continue to be. But there's something very powerful and even sacred about the relationships and connections we create in the physical world. Even the Torah suggests that from time to time, we need to step back from the numbers, from the quantifying, and experience what lies before us. The ability to see, to hear, and to touch the infinitely complex and beautiful creations that are human beings. We are much more than a number to be counted and far more than a visage to be analyzed, because each of us is sacred and unique, endowed with a brilliant spark of holiness, and much greater than the sum of our parts. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to continue with the words of Aleinu. I'll ask you to rise as we turn to these words of adoration on 282, and the ark is opened.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כליה הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני נלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Feel free to be seated. You'll find the words to Mourner's Kaddish, also words of praise, on page 294 on the screen before you. We, of course, think of all those families mourning the loss of a loved one or in anguish if they haven't been found at this time. And we think of the following families who are in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning a loved one. So we remember Sandy Sella-Smith, friend of Esther Klein; Rich Ulrich, friend of Shelley and Jeff Katz; Doug Myers, friend of Tom and Dorsey Rose; Elaine Lapin, wife of the late Bob Lapin; Andrew Shapiro, cousin of Marjorie Graff; Ken Hoffman, friend of Tom and Dorsey Rose; David Curtis, husband of Carol Curtis; Bob Lapin, husband of the late Elaine Lapin, father of Andrew Lapin and Adrian Lapin; and most recently Jeff Garfield, husband of Betsy Garfield. To these names we also add and mark the yahrzeit, the anniversary of passing of a loved one during the Shabbat in years past, as we remember Jeffrey Baum, Patricia Bild, Al Biller, Ethel H. Blumenfeld, Nathan Brindis, Ralph Cohen, Fritzy Cohen, Toby Dorman, Leo Fish, Eugene Gorlick, Sidney Quall, Leo Loeb Jr., Grauman Marks, Abner Rubin, Rhoda L. Rothman, Arnold Sacker, Victor Siegel, Samuel Schlafer, Jeffrey Siegel, Irving Smolensky, Jack Solomon, Ann Turner, Joanne White, and Elka Wolstein. Are there any other names to add for yahrzeit at this time? We say Zichronam Livracha, may all of their memories continue to be a blessing in our lives as we rise to recite the words of Mourner's Kaddish together, page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei b'chol beit Yisrael, b'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei al-maya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu. Le'elamin kol birchata v'shirata tushpechata v'nechemata Da amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. Yechaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mramav hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who causes peace in the heavens cause peace to descend on us, Israel, and throughout the world as we say, amen.
V'imiru, 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 amen. V'imiru, 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 amen.
Feel free to be seated. We'll continue with the Shabbat Kiddush, blessing over the fruit of the vine, page 5 in your Sidurim, in your prayer books. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri agafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'ahava u'ratzon inchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techilah, l'mikra'e kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Givanu v'charta, v'yotanu kidasha, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'ahava u'ratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat.
Amen.
Chaim to life. And please join us in the Kiddush, the Motzi. Motzi lechem min haaretz, we give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together, as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 short announcements today. Of course, many thanks to Allison, great to have you back, and Joy for leading beautiful music, and our great tech crew in the back, which is a triumvirate, or a trifecta, if you will, this Shabbat evening. We will be starting Onegs. Remember those? Yes, Onegs. Next Friday, we are going to have either a couple people from Sisterhood or a couple people from Brotherhood who generously are offering their time. They're going to be wearing some masks and some gloves, and they're going to be serving us some food. So that'll be great to have some camaraderie or fellowship after that. It'll certainly be the first time since I'm here and the first time in a heck of a lot of Shabbatot. In response to the Miami tragic collapse, you can still make donations. You'll find the button on our temple homepage, avatshalom.org, to the Shul of Bar Harbor in Surfside. and that will bring you directly to a link on their Chesed or Kindness fundraising page. The Sisterhood's Honey Jar fundraiser is taking place now. Bring some sweetness to the new Jewish year, 5782, which is coming up before we know it, by purchasing a jar of delicious honey using the link found in our happenings page or the individual emails that have gone and will continue to go out. The Brotherhood is mailing their donation form for their one and only major fundraiser, the Rosh Hashanah that they send to the congregation every fall. They do great things for the temple, and they need our support. We had an awesome time, probably 45 gentlemen, menches, at an outing earlier this week. That's it. I think that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what? Oh, I thought you were going to say something about the Red Sox. I mean, I guess that's great. That's good for the Lightning. But the Red Sox don't start till 9:40, so that's what I'm waiting for. But good for them. Wonderful. God Bless America. We're going to go patriotic, as we should, this weekend. You'll find the words right there. Allison's going to sing the lesser-known intro to God Bless America. The words aren't up there. It's also in the prayer book on page 376. Please join us. This is a good one to rise for.
As the storm clouds gather all across the sea, let us pledge allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair, as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, through the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home.
Feel free to be seated, and we'll close our service as we have been for the past year with reciting a prayer for our health and well-being for those around us and for those who haven't been fully vaccinated. The importance of wearing a mask, very important. The blessing, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al shmirat hanefesh, which means the mitzvah for protecting our insides, protecting our life. Shabbat shalom to all of you. Have a wonderful 4th of July weekend and a safe one at that. Until next week.
Thank you, Joy. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Rabbi, question for you.